Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to the Mara Triangle. Can you believe it? Here we are in Kenya. There are a whole lot of wildebeest over there. And this is your sunset safari, live from the Mara Triangle here, and also the Sabi Sand down in South Africa. It's a wonderful joy to be broadcasting to you here live. Jamie's out scouring the landscape in South Africa, as is Taylor. I think they're looking for the Nkuhumas and possibly Karula, while we're up here hoping that that lot over there are going to try and cross this river. This is the Mara River. Now, before we get into the nuts and bolts of this amazing sighting that we're having here, let me just tell you a little bit about this show. For the next 5 days, between the 20th and 24th, obviously, we're going to be broadcasting from here and in South Africa, but for 7.5 hours continuously. So we'll be going from now until 10:30 Central African time. Then, if there's a whole lot of action going on this end, we'll carry on going for as long as it takes. We might shut down at 10:30, we might keep going till 4 in the morning if we can keep the crew going. Gendre's just yawned. He is on camera. Say hello, Gendre.
Hello, everybody.
Nope, show them your thumb. There we go. That's it. And behind us, of course, we have Mrs. Wallington and Mr. Wallington. Lovely to have them here. We do need to do the opening title sequence, so let's go there now.
Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good afternoon everybody, and welcome to another wonderful safari. It's a sweltering 83 Fahrenheit this afternoon, and my name is Taylor, and on camera we have got Eggsy. Give a little wave, Eggsy, and there he is. And this afternoon you're probably wondering what we're looking for, seeing as we've got quite a long day ahead of us. Now everybody, we are going to try and start the show off by looking for some elephants. And if you've never watched the show before, we are currently driving on a Juma private game reserve, which is situated in the Sabi Sands of South Africa. Or sometimes people will call this area the Greater Kruger area, which is quite a massive piece of land. It's about 8.5 million acres that all the animals have to roam around on. Can you believe it? So it makes it quite difficult for us, obviously, to try and find everything. And it is live. So if you'd like to interact with myself, with Jamie or James in the Mara, you're welcome to send us some questions. You're welcome to either hashtag Safari Live, or you could also email us questions at WildEarthTV. Right, I hope I haven't missed my turn off. I'm still, as I keep saying, I'm still learning to navigate around in this area. And I'm still trying to find some elephant footprints, and we haven't seen any yet. There was apparently a herd seen earlier this morning, but elephants can travel large distances, and they could have moved right out of here. Otherwise, if we don't come right with anything on this side, we are most likely also going to have a look at Red Dam, which is situated on Arathusa. Now, the other afternoon it was nice and hot, very similar to the temperature of today, and we were quite fortunate to see so many animals come around. Now, the only difference between now and a few days ago is that we've actually had some rain. How amazing is that? Which is also going to be quite interesting, because the animals aren't just going to be heading to the watering holes that are pumped and that they know that they're there. There are quite a few mud wallows that have now filled up, that have formed sort of natural pans. So the animals have really got quite a few places to go to. And we're coming up to a quarantine open area, and that's probably where we're going to stop first, just to have a little look. We are comparing every single day. We're taking screenshots of what quarantine open area is going to look like in a few days' time. So after this rain, we had 36 mils of rain, maybe a little bit more, and we should soon be seeing a lush carpet of grass. Right, Now, while I make my way towards quarantine and try and get the vehicle in exactly the same spot, Jamie is itching to say hello to you this afternoon.
Good afternoon and welcome on a very special sunset safari. My name is Jamie and this afternoon I have Dave on camera with me. And as Dazzling Dave predicted, we have had plenty of rain, which means there's puddles all over the show. And for those of you that were particularly sharp-eyed, a lot of animals lying around enjoying and basking in the afternoon heat. Look closely and you will see a large male lion on the opposite side of our puddle of water. And he looks very content with his legs up in the air and a very full belly. Oh, isn't this fantastic? An extended sunset safari with the Safari Live team spread out over the African continent. Not quite spread out, we're in 2 different places, but I'm just practicing that line for one day when we really are spread out across the African continent. But it's a good start. James live from Kenya, myself and a Taylor from Juma Private Game Reserve, all the way into the darkness of evening. All those mysteries that up until now we've been asleep for. We're going to be out and about exploring them. Right, let's creep on a little bit closer to our big male lion and see whether the rest of the Nkuhumas are around. Of course, the sunrise safari was not on this morning, and we haven't been out and about, but I heard rumors. I have my sources, as you can imagine. I have my sources, and they told me that the Nkuhumas killed something once again last night. Nobody's 100% sure if it was a kudu or a waterbuck, because most of it was gone by the time they were found. But we're starting off with one very comfortable looking Birmingham boy. Who have we got here? Andre, you want to know what you are watching. You are watching, hands down, the best thing on the internet. No contest. I mean, I'm not saying that just because I'm biased. Hello, boy. Oh, look how cutesy you're looking. Andre, you are watching a live safari from 2 different African countries. Taylor and myself are here in the top northeastern corner of South Africa in a place called the Sabi Sand on Juma. And James, of course, in the Mara Triangle. And between the 3 different vehicles, or 3 different parties, we have a spectacle of African wildlife to share with you. Now, Andre and all of our new viewers, since you have discovered the best thing on the internet in capital letters, you are welcome to send through your questions, and you can do that on #SafariLive on Twitter, or you can email through to questions@WildEarth.tv. And Andre, I would like to introduce you to one of the Birmingham males, the dominant male lion coalition. Andre has said that's not safe in response to our situation. You raise a valid point. It's something that we've been explaining a lot recently, and it's a very, very important point. These are wild lions. They are completely 100% wild. And it's very, very important that we never forget that and we never get blasé. But for the last good couple of decades, areas like this one have been devoted to the conservation of these animals. And one of the ways in which these animals is conserved is through tourism and through safari vehicles, bringing tourists from overseas to come and just see these animals in their natural habitat, behaving as they always have. That is one of the ways, one of the best ways that we can go about conserving these animals and looking after them. So they are 100% protected and safe from outside threats, but they are wild. They are very, very used to the vehicles. Although, as I said, it's important we never take that for granted. But this Birmingham male will have been as familiar with our open safari vehicles as he is with the trees and the bushes around him. From the time he was a cub of just a couple of months old, he would have been seeing safari vehicles. And it's important to remember we are not on a lion's menu. They're not out to kill us. They're not out to harm us. They're just wild animals that go about their daily business. And if you needed any further evidence, have a look at our Birmingham male in all his dignified glory as he lies on his back with his paws resting on his chest. You can see he could not be at all bothered by Dave and myself. He lifted his head slightly as we drove in just to look at what we're up to. Also important to remember, Andre and new viewers who are concerned for our safety and for the animals' safety, We are always very, very attuned to what the animals are doing. Even though I know the Birmingham boys particularly well, I never take for granted that they're not having a bad day, say, or something similar. So we approach very carefully and watching their body language the entire time. Now, I'm not going to leave our lion for too long, but I want to go and just investigate and see if there aren't other lions just around the corner. In the meantime, let's head across to Taylor and her brilliant idea of taking photographs and screenshots of quarantine clearings.
We are back at our spot, everybody. So if you've maybe just started watching the show, if you're a new viewer, over the next couple of days, we're going to be doing screenshots of the same area, just to basically photograph the differences that we're going to be seeing over the next couple of days as the lovely green grass comes through. So take a screenshot now. We do two different views. We do a sort of a wide-angled view, and now we're going to zoom in to the termite mound, and we're going to take another shot of this termite mound. Everybody got your photos? Screenshot away. And I can actually see quite a bit of green grass coming through. I don't know if you can see it there. Eggsy, maybe let's zoom on a little patch of green grass somewhere over here that we can see it coming through the ground. It's not much. Is that one? Or do we need... No. Is that... Yes! Look at that! You see all those lovely green shoots coming through over there. Look at that, there we go. And it doesn't look like much now, everybody, but I can tell you that these shoots of green grass are filled with all sorts of nutrients. And all the different animals are going to start coming through and feeding on them. Right, now that we've got that out of the way, I think we're going to carry on with our drive. We're going to start making our way towards Red Dam, everybody, in hope to find some elephants, possibly a hippopotamus, though I'm not sure if that hippo is still going to be around, seeing as there's quite a bit of water everywhere, as I was saying earlier, which is good. And I hope you're all excited for later this evening when we go on a night drive. And I hope to hear from some of you as to what you would like to try and find. Obviously, night drives can be quite interesting. Sometimes they don't always have lots of animals around, but it'll be nice just to actually be around at night. It's something different. It's something that most of you probably would have never done, and also to be using the infrared. I'm very excited about that. I've never had the opportunity to do anything like this before. So imagine, even if we find something like an impala or an elephant, and we normally don't view them at night because of the spotlight, but we're going to be able to view animals like that with the infrared, which is very, very exciting. And yeah, because we don't actually get to see what the animals get up to at night. So hopefully Jamie and I, and James of course, will be learning a few different animal behaviors that maybe we have never seen before, which is good. Got my notebook, of course. Always adding things to my notebook. So as we bumble along towards Red Dam, I've got a few of you already coming through with requests as to what we can try and look for this evening. And Frikkie has said that he hopes that we can find an aardvark. Now, I'm hoping that Jamie is the one to find that aardvark. I even said to her earlier, if I'm so fortunate enough to find an aardvark, I'm definitely going to call her into the sighting to narrate what's going on, because she's never seen one before, which is amazing, because she's been working in the bush for quite a number of years. So to see something like that is amazing. But I have heard other guides who have been in the industry for over 10 years say that they have never seen an aardvark before, and they are convinced that they are mythical creatures. So over the next few evenings, let's hope we can break that spell for Jamie. I've been very fortunate to see quite a few aardvark, and particularly in the last 6-week cycle I worked at the previous reserve I was on, I managed to locate an active burrow in a termite mound of a really big male aardvark. And we almost started the process of habituating him. He became very relaxed, and in the beginning he would dart off when he saw us, and he would slowly come back. Sometimes he'd run straight and go into his burrow, And after we saw him, I think after 3 or 4 times of seeing him, he settled down quite nicely. And I was actually able to get a few nice shots of him, which is very rare. So that was quite exciting. Maybe we end up finding a burrow of one in this area and we can try and do the same thing. But I've spotted some yellow-billed hornbills up on a marula tree. No, don't fly away. I was just telling everybody about you. There we go. What there? Well, there it's flying now, everybody, as you can see. And I love that sort of sailing movement that they do when they fly. There we go. It's landed again for us. Thank you. There's the other one. Most likely a male and a female. A bit far away for me to tell you which one is which. But just a nice, quick little glimpse. It looks like the female is the one on the right, and the male is on the top left-hand corner of your screen. You can see them there, just sitting away in the tops of the marula trees, which are hopefully going to start getting their leaves soon in the next few months. So that's also going to be a quite nice change to see, is how the bush goes from this sandy brown yellow to lovely lush green. No, oh my goodness. Let's head on to James, who has got a reptile that we don't see all the time.
Now I must apologize everybody for that frozen glitch, but we are broadcasting here out of the Mara Triangle in the middle of Kenya, a magnificent country in East Africa. Now let me just bang on a little bit more about what I was saying earlier. You're looking at a crocodile, of course, and the crocodile you may see is, well, eating on the rotting carcass of a wildebeest. Now across the way there, Gendry, you can see a lot of wildebeest, and they are thinking about crossing the river. Now all in all there are 1.4 million of those chaps knocking about the Serengeti Mara ecosystem. That's not all of them there, obviously, that's probably a couple of hundred. And during this time of the year, sort of between the end of June and, well, hopefully the beginning of October or end of October, most of the herd is up here in the Mara Triangle, which is about 510 square kilometers, 51,000 hectares or so of really beautiful plains, East African plains. It's the most spectacular piece of land, and that's where they are now. And they knock about here, and then round about the end of October they turn south as the rains start to fall in the Serengeti, and they go down into Tanzania. And this whole ecosystem, the Mara Serengeti, is about 20,000 square kilometers, which is roughly the same as the Greater Kruger National Park. The big difference being, of course, is that there are no fences around any of this. They move on into conservancies in much the same way that the Sabi Sand and the Timbavati form conservancies of the Greater Kruger National Park. And so it really is difficult to actually even size this incredible wilderness that we're now in. We don't know if those wildebeest are going to cross. They go to and from during the course of the season, many of them looking a little reticent about going across, and that's of course because they want to avoid the fate of their friend that you can see being devoured by that great dinosaur of the deep now. He's just, oh, there he is. He's eating a piece of rotten wildebeest as we speak. Now, crocodiles, in case you don't know, are unable to chew, and so they have to kind of eat rotting flesh. They can't eat good fresh meat, and all around the crocodile you can see the fish rising and helping the crocodile devour that hapless wildebeest. Now we are as live as Jamie and Taylor, which means we'd love to hear from you. Hashtag Safari Live, questions at WildEarthTV. And I think you may have missed it, but once the Sabi Sand drive wraps at 10:30 this evening, Central African time, we will continue depending on what we have. And I will just give you a little introduction to the lions that we're hoping to see a little bit earlier, at least a little bit later, because we did see them earlier. The Kichwa Tembo Pride is what we're going to be looking at. 6 lionesses and 3 males, interestingly very closely linked to the old Marsh Pride from Big Cat Diaries. And these males are known as the Marsh Coalition males because they came from that pride. So that's a nice link with the Big Cat Diaries. And then all around, just the most incredible diversity and numbers of animals. Darlene, you say this is your first time to the Mara, and you say thank you for this opportunity. Well, Darlene, it's just such an incredible joy to be able to bring it to you from here. Like I said, 1.4 million wildebeest, but that's not all that knocks around here. There are close on 400,000 Thompson's gazelle, 300,000 zebra, same species as you'll probably see in the Sabi sand today, slightly different subspecies. They're called the Grant zebra, and their most notable thing, the most notable thing about them, Chandra, look at these two hippo facing off here. The zebras which we will see, you'll see, have got a slightly Roman nose and no shadow stripe. These two hippopotamus are not happy with each other. Two bulls fighting over a territory that must smell rather nastily of rotting wildebeest, I would imagine. Hello Lynn, you've asked a wonderful question because it will enable me to deal in one fell swoop with a common misconception. You say, how long is the migration? The migration, Lynn, is continuous. It never ends. And so what happens is in a 12-month period is basically in January and February they're down in the southern plains of the Serengeti, the wildebeest are, that is, and they calve there. Hundreds of those calves, much like the impala of the Sabi sand, get taken out by lions and cheetah and various other predators in that area. And then during the course of the year they move up the western fringes of the Serengeti through Maswa and then up into the western corridor around about sort of April and May. That's the western corridor of the Serengeti. And then as the sort of those grasses become totally denuded, they head up into the Mara Triangle where we are now and the Masai Mara further west of us. And then they have what they call the short rains, and the short rains fall here and they feed around here. And then normally sort of around about the end of October they go back down to the eastern fringes of the Serengeti and then further down towards Serra Nera, which is the central part of the Serengeti, before they fetch up again to carve down. Oh, look at that crocodile rolling. Isn't that amazing? That's how they rip their carcasses apart. They turn over like that. I might have to take a picture, everybody. You must see the lens I've got here. It's not mine, of course. A person of my photographic skills doesn't deserve a lens like this. Anyway, so that's the migration, Lynn, and so it's continuous. And it is relatively unpredictable. You know, when we got here 2 weeks ago, well, it looked like there were at least 1.4 million wildebeest in this area. We haven't managed to find anything like that number here now. Some of them seem to have headed back into Serengeti already, and others seem to have gone north into some of the conservancies of the Mara Triangle. Anyway, we've had good rain here over the 3 days that we've been here, and we're hoping that that is what is going to attract the wildebeest here. Apparently that's what sort of dictates the micro movements that they make in and around these areas. So we'll see. But regardless, we've got lots to show you here. We've got these crocodiles, obviously. We're going to spend some time with that special pride of lions. That is really disgusting. And we're also going to show you some topi, hopefully. Wonderful antelope, bizarre looking things. Look at that crocodile go. And Thompson's gazelles and elephants here. And just some beautiful scenery. Hello Genevieve in New York, you've asked a very good question. You say, when a crocodile attempts to kill something, does it then have to have a rest before it can try again? Yes, it does to a certain extent. I mean, it's physiology. I mean, essentially works exactly the same way as yours and mine does. It has a certain store of energy and glucose and sugars that allow it to expend energy. And eventually that will run out and it will have to lie down and recoup and digest some food, or in crocodiles' case often digest quite a lot of fat. That's amazing. And then they can go again. But they do need to rest. And remember, a crocodile the size of the one you're looking at now, he's not the biggest that there is here, but he's pretty large. They can go for, now wait for this little statistic that I'm going to give you. They can go for up to 2 years without food, which I think is absolutely astounding. Ooh, there he goes. He's having a lovely meal. Now the Mara River is perennial, and as you know, in the Sabi sand, nothing in the way of a perennial river. We do of course have the Sand River and the Sabi River, but they never flow strongly like this for anything like as long. and that allows all these crocodiles to grow so very large on the proceeds, largely, of this migration. Right, let's head across to Jamie Patterson. It's been a while since I've seen the ladies of Juma, so give them my regards and we'll catch up with you in just a little while.
Do you think James is referring to Taylor and myself or the Nkuhumas when he speaks about the ladies of Juma? I'm not 100% sure, but I'll give the Nkuhumas James's regards just in case. So, Nkuhumas, James sends his regards. Amber says thank you. Right, so the gut instinct was right to go a little bit further on and check what was happening along Nyala Road South. And we've got the Nkuhumas and all 8 cubs spread out in a sort of quite a wide arc actually, but I did do a head count and all little ones are here. That, of course, is what we do each and every single time we see them after 2 of them decided to go on an adventure and disappeared for 2 days, giving us all possible heart failure. Because it's a dangerous, dangerous place for a little cub wandering about alone in the bush. But Hansel and Gretel reunited with the rest of the pride, looking healthy, happy, and very, very full. Oh, exactly. Exhausted little cubs. That yesterday didn't have to walk too far. We're not far from where we were yesterday. But have had to come and join at the kill, perhaps fight for a little bit of the meal, whatever it was. It was either waterbuck or kudu, judging by the remains. But that kill is now completely finished, and we have lionesses enjoying the shade. And I have to say, the Nkuhumas have been veritable machines over the last few weeks. It seems as though every single day that we find them, they've made a new kill. It was 3 buffalo in one night a couple of days ago, although, admittedly, credit where credit is due, I think the Birmingham boys might have helped that particular situation. Healthy, happy little cubs. Well, very warm. You can see them panting frantically away. Now, just to set the scene and to explain exactly where we find ourselves, they've chosen the most perfect spot for us, out in the open on Nyala Road South. There is also one other Birmingham boy here, and I think it's the one with the injured lip. He's just ducked out of view. He's in the drainage line itself, so he's a little bit harder for me to get to. Now, he's the one with the hole in his cheek. And I assume that the 4th lioness, because there are 5 adult lionesses in the Nkuhuma Pride, I assume that our 5th lioness is off, presumably with the same Birmingham boy as yesterday, resuming, or perhaps starting, I think is a better way of phrasing it, their honeymoon activities somewhere else. I don't know exactly where. I wouldn't be surprised if they're not quite close by, but I haven't heard any of the sounds that accompany lions mating. So 3 of our Nkuhuma females produced the 8 cubs you see before you. 3 different litters, ranging from about, they must be 4.5 months old now, the oldest set, to about 2.5 months old, the youngest set. And we've been fortunate enough to follow them, if not since birth, then certainly just a couple of days old to a couple of weeks old. And the poor females still having to put up with those sharp little teeth as they suckle. Now, HKP, you were wondering, on the subject of our Nkuhumas, to take ourselves back in time a little bit, you want to know if there's any news of Junior. Just to fill in new viewers, Junior is the male that came from the Nkuhuma Pride. He dispersed, as is normal for an adult male lion. Once they reach sexual maturity, they leave the pride, either on their own volition, or they are kicked out by either the resident males or sometimes even the females themselves. Junior dispersed, he wandered round, he made his way all the way into Kruger, and our latest update was that he was on Buffelshoek. Now, Yours did send me the picture of that sighting. I would love to tell you what day of the week it was, but I have to be honest, I haven't a clue. You know how bad I am with that sort of thing. A couple of days ago, he was on Buffelshoek with a young male companion that he has managed to acquire, a little bit younger than himself, looking happy and healthy, and I have to say absolutely gorgeous. Although with the Nkuhuma Matimba genes, that was pretty much to be expected. So Junior has dispersed, but he is in the area. Buffelshoek, to give you a lay of the land, is the property to the north of our boundary. We can't go there, but the lions don't have any boundaries, so they can. And it is probably about, where he was seen is probably about 6 kilometers away from where we are now. So no more news since he was seen at the dam, at Chicana Dam. Yours sent me a picture, and I sat and looked at the spot patterns just to extra doubly check, because you never know when a random young male might come wandering through. That is what they do. But it was most definitely Junior, and he's looking very well. It would be ideal if he didn't decide to come straying into this particular area, both for the Nkuhuma cubs and for his own safety. He's big, he's a big boy, but he's not quite up to competing with the Birmingham males, and they would not be terribly impressed with a stranger in their midst, or a relative stranger. And Junior might be, not necessarily, but most likely would be a threat to our gorgeous little lion cubs. So whilst we're happy to hear news of Junior, that he's happy, well and safe, it would be preferable if he stayed that way elsewhere. At least he's got a buddy now, because Junior had to disperse all on his own, which is a scary thing for a young male lion, and a huge percentage of them do not make it when they leave the pride if they're all on their own. But male lions are not fussy when it comes to choosing companions. Where are you off to, little one? And I'm going to sit right where you can't see me. That's where I'm off to. And they will actually form a coalition with unrelated young males, which is what he's done. Nobody's 100% sure which young male lion it is. There's still some fierce debate going on around that. I am not going to claim an opinion because I don't know all of the lions of this area all that well. Luckily for us, our current litter of Nkuhumas, they're bouncing bundles of baby joy, or little fuzzy monsters, or fuzzy, did Steph call them fuzzy wuzzies once, or did I imagine that? Luckily for them, they've got at least 3 males in this collection of cubs. That's not the word I was going for. Generation of cubs, let's put it that way. So they will have company. And hello to Marcy, who we appear to have kept as a new viewer. Well, this is now Marcy's 2nd day. You wanted to know how long a lion can live for. Generally in the wild, you're looking at the females living up until about 14, although I've known lionesses that have lived up to 16. But 13, 14 is probably where the average falls. The male lions tend to have a much shorter, much more brutal life. When a male lion is kicked out of his territory, a lot of the time they are killed. And when they are dispersal males, they have a very, very high risk. So on average, a male lion lives a shorter life. Usually around 10 to 11 years old would probably be the average. They can live longer than that. The Matimba males, if I'm not mistaken, and please feel free to correct me if I am, because I actually only spent a brief period of time with them, were closer to 11 or so when they lost this area a year ago, over a year ago now. And they still are going strong in their little portion of the Sabi Sands, much further south. Our lovely little cubs are fast asleep, and for now, on this hot afternoon, I don't think they're going to be up to too much. We're going to sit here and enjoy a bit of time with them. Let's head over to Taylor for an update.
We're live. Yeah. We are. We are live.
Hello? Are we live? Oh my goodness, sorry everybody, I didn't hear what was going on over there. My apologies everybody, I must have pulled my cable that connects me to the vehicle, and I didn't hear the ladies in FC telling me, well, we are watching some kudu. I thought that Eggsy was playing a trick on me, everybody. So we've got a small group of female kudu here. You can see this one nibbling away. Eggsy, can we zoom in? I want to have a look and see what this female kudu is actually eating. Now there's very little vegetation around at the moment. What are you munching on? I can't see it properly. Just trying to have a look at the monitor, everybody, just to see. Now I know that they were eating guarri leaves earlier, but this does not look like a guarri bush to me. I can't see exactly what it is. unfortunately. But anyway, most of the things that the kudu are feeding on at this time of the year, unfortunately, is not very high in nutrition. Now, we were talking about how all the lovely new grass shoots are coming up and how the animals are actually going to start feeding on them when they probably push out the ground a little bit further. Let's see what this female does next. The rest of the group has already moved off further to the right of her, so we can't see them anymore. And there's a few of them here. I think there were about 5 or 6 kudu. I was hoping she was going to munch on a guarri tree for us, but she isn't. And if you have a look at her head, look at those lovely big ears that she's got. Now, because the kudu sort of feed on leaves, we call them browsers, they've got to have really big ears in order to hear the predators before they see them. You can imagine eyesight, I don't think, is particularly necessary when you're moving through a very, very dense vegetation. It's important to be able to hear everything. Lots of leaves around, lots of fallen branches. So they will be listening out. And you see them, they move independently of each other. One facing behind them, one facing forward. Always making sure that nothing's trying to creep up on them. There's another female that's just popped out now. So the last two, there she goes, behind all the bushes. And they were standing under these guarri trees. So basically what you can see on your screen at the moment, all these bright green leaves, they are all guarri trees. Basically they're standing underneath them just to try and get a little bit of shade. Now, I've actually got a guarri branch over here, which I want to show you. Because just before you all came to us, they were actually munching on the guarri leaves. So if you have a look at them, doesn't look like too much, right? And looking at them, you'd think, oh, they must be quite delicious. Now, they're curvy little leaves, and if I have to try and describe the feeling to you, they're almost dry, but in the same breath, they're also quite flexible as well. So they don't just crunch up in a crisp. You can hear that, but they don't really break, so there's still a bit of moisture in them. Now, these trees are high in tannins. We have a variety of different guarri species of trees. They're in the Euclea, a family of trees, sorry, the genus of trees. And what I want to do for you is I'm going to pick, and I'm going to put the branch down now, and watch my face, because this is what's happening when the animals are eating them. It's very bitter, everybody, very bitter. It's not nice. I can only describe it as, you know, if you eat a sour grape, how your mouth sort of puckers up like that. That's exactly the feeling in my mouth. So all those tannins that are in this plant dries out your mouth. And if you ever have the opportunity of going on safari, ask your ranger or your guide to actually let you try one of these guarri leaves. They're not unpleasant, but it's just quite nice to sort of feel what the animals must be feeding. So they don't feed on these leaves for too long. They'll just munch away at a few, and they will move off. And something quite nice about the guarri trees, I'll just tell you a few little conservation techniques that we use this plant for, as well as some medicinal uses. Is something that I quite love is that if you're out in the bush and you're perhaps not feeling well, if you've maybe got a bit of an upset stomach, the guarri leaves are great for that. So it's a bit unclear on the dosage, but I've been told by quite a few Shangaan gentlemen that if you take about 3 of the biggest leaves and you roll them up and you swallow them, this will actually help dry your stomach out. So it can stop diarrhea after an hour or so. However, you've got to be careful not to take too many of these leaves. You can imagine it will then cause the opposite. It can cause a constipation. And the next thing I'm about to tell you, I've actually had to do this. So remember I was telling you about how sort of crunchy the leaves are? Now, can you imagine? These leaves don't catch a light very easily. So if you see any fires in the bushveld here in South Africa, and these trees are quite prolific, they grow everywhere. One of the really amazing things, and I've had to use them before in a bushfire, is you can break a branch much bigger than this one. These are just a few twigs, so break quite a nice thick branch, and you can actually use it as a fire beater to put out fire. It takes a while for these leaves to start burning. So it is a very handy plant to have around in the bush. And thankfully the animals don't eat too much of it, because it is also very useful for us. Now, we are making our way. I'm going to release the guarri tree back into its natural environment, and we're going to head towards Red Dam. We're slowly making our way there, everybody. I don't particularly drive too fast, and we need to head on over there eventually. Right, while I bumble over and attempt to navigate myself around Arathusa, I'm going to send you on to Jamie, who has still got some lions.
Could our lions look any more relaxed than they do right now? A scene of familial contentment. One cub lying right up next to Auntie Amber Eyes, with a very, very dirty face, I've just noticed. Amber Eyes has proved to be a particularly tolerant aunt, I feel, although every now and again she does batter them around rather roughly, and it is fascinating to watch. I've just been sitting here enjoying the peacefulness of the scene, the birds that have been around. I'm seeing them happy and healthy, and look at the massive size of their feet. Like Great Dane puppies with those massive paws. They seem just as clumsy at times. Feet that are far too big for their bodies, but that they will grow into very, very quickly. We're going to be looking back on scenes like this in a month's time, and there's going to be massive lion cubs lying everywhere. It's just going to be a pile of lions, and we're going to wistfully look back on the moments when they were as tiny as they are right now. I'm thinking back on the very first time we saw the oldest three all lined up perfectly. It was the very first time we'd seen them live, and they posed for us in the most symmetrical, beautiful manner possible. Hard to believe now. And I remember saying at the time, I can't wait for the moments where we've got cubs everywhere, lionesses everywhere, cubs playing with each other, and we have been so rewarded. This, if I'm not very much mistaken, that little cub that just got up and is currently giving us an example of the perfect dog stretch. RJ, you wanted to know if the lions ever get curious, or the cubs ever get curious and come up to the vehicle. The youngest set, I find, there's one cub in the youngest group that I've noticed is far more curious than the others. And sometimes they never ever come right up to the vehicle. I haven't had them come right up. They've walked past before, but not to investigate. They've kind of just been walking past. And your heart rate always goes up a little bit, because you know how protective lionesses are. I'm not sure which little one it is, but it has looked at us with bright eyes full of curiosity before. But for the most part, we've now just part of their landscape. They barely even glance up as we drive in. And then they go straight back to sleep. Sorry guys, I'm just listening to the Game Drive channel. At some point, there will be other vehicles arriving at this sighting. We'll have to leave them for a brief period, as you know. The standard sunset safari approach. We leave them for a bit. Hopefully we can come back before the end, but everybody gets a chance to see them. You're nibbling your foot. I just heard a noise that was not where I thought there was another. There's another lion here somewhere. Sorry, I'm just trying to see. I heard a sneeze, and I think it's another lion. Now, Jen, you wanted to know if the other lionesses have cubs, if they fall pregnant and have cubs. Will their male cubs join with the rest of their litter mates, or will they form their own group? Because as we know, we've got two lionesses that haven't yet fallen, well, as far as we know, haven't yet fallen pregnant, or at least if they are going to have cubs, they're going to be at least 5-6 months younger than the rest of this group. The answer is yes, they could well join in that coalition with the rest of the older cubs. So the Birmingham boys have about a year or so, we don't know exactly, but about a year or so age difference between the eldest member and the youngest member of that particular coalition. So it's not a prerequisite that the lion cubs are all they must be relatively close in age, but doesn't have to be very, very close. And if you look at that photo of Junior and the young male that has joined up with him, that young male must be at least a year younger than him, if not a year and a half. He is much, much younger. And there was a part of me that always hoped, and I mean it's a part of me that's very human. It's not the lions really couldn't have cared less, but I always thought it would have made such a good story if Junior had joined up with the young male of the Shimungwe pride. And I only ever got to see once or twice, and VM nicknamed Oliver Twist, because the Shimungwe pride was for various reasons, there were no remaining adults. It was just one little male and his two little either sisters or cousins, very, very young, far too young to be moving about independently. And they managed to exist mainly off scavenging. And I always dreamed that Junior would form a coalition with Oliver and we'd have a fantastic story. But that's just the human part of me. We don't know where the Shimungwes are. They come and they go. They pop up every now and again. I haven't heard news of them for a while. Doesn't mean anything's happened. It just might mean that they are elsewhere. Oh, look at this cub. With that massive little belly. I know that was what do you call an oxymoron? A massive little belly. But you know what I mean. Stuffed full and contented. Hey Jean, lovely to have you on the Sunset Safari. Now the naming of the different animals is of course always a little bit contentious. You say when the young males of this coalition join together and move off, what will they be called? Generally, the standard in this area is to name them after their pride, so they would be the Nkuhuma males. It gets a bit tricky when, of course, there's a couple of generations, because Junior's an Nkuhuma male, but he's formed an odd coalition, so they might get a different name, because it's Junior from the Nkuhuma pride and then a young male from another pride. So they might take the name from the area that they start to spend a lot of time in. They could become, for example, the Dixie Koppie males, since they seem to be spending a little bit of time in that area. But I'm just spitballing. So yes, most traditionally, a male coalition takes the name of the pride and would become known as the Nkuhuma males. There's the Styx males, but that can change. The Birmingham boys are not even called the Birmingham boys in parts of the Sabi Sand. They're called the Gari males, which is also a nice name, and there's nothing wrong with that, and that's because they came from, as far as they're concerned, they took over and basically came from Gari, which is where we are now. Gari, Little Gari, it's all a massive, this whole northern Sabi Sands, a lot of it is the Gari property. I'd love to actually know where the name Gari comes from, come to think of it. And as Amber Eyes snoozes away in the peaceful afternoon shade, let's head across and see what's happening at Red Dam.
We have arrived at our destination, everybody. I think it took a lot longer than what it's supposed to, and we've arrived to nothing, I'm afraid, except a couple of birds. And if you have a look, we have got some hornbills. We've got, it looks like a red-billed hornbill. Can you see it? No, they've gone down, Eggsy. To the left. Have we lost them? Where did they go? Did they fly? Oh my goodness, literally as I looked up. Oh no, there he is. He's just hopping away on the side of the bank. Can you see him there? There it is. Sorry. This red-billed hornbill, everybody, is on the move this afternoon. It travelled a distance of about 1 meter, maybe even 2 meters in just a few seconds. There we go. You can see, look at it, pecking the ground and looking for any grubs that are possibly coming out of the wet sand. But I love the way that the hornbills walk and hop when they're on the grounds. Is he going to go and peck in some dung now? Yes, are you? Or are you just going to peck at the sand? Just pecking at the sand, everybody. So it's quite nice again today. We're seeing quite a few different species of hornbill. Now, unlike the hardy-dar ibis we saw yesterday, this bird does not have a sensory nerve in its bill, so it cannot feel the movement of the insects if they're underneath the ground. So I'm not actually sure entirely what it is eating. Maybe it's found some termites. Yeah, it's picking at something. So there must be some ants or something on the ground over there that we just cannot see. There, going to the, it looks like that is some impala dung, also just having a little scratch around there. And the reason why the hornbills will often feed in dung, whether it's rhino dung, when it is elephant dung or buffalo dung, is because there's lots of insects that are gathering underneath that dung and using sort of the dung as a shield. So often if you pick up a buffalo patty and you look underneath, or there's a blacksmith lapwing that's popped into picture over there. So, sorry, let me just go back to what I was saying about the hornbill. There's a lot of insects that will use that sort of cover just to keep out of the hot sun, and then they often decompose the dung that way. Well, while we carry on with our drive this afternoon, there doesn't seem to be having too much luck here. Let's go see how James is doing in the Mara.
Now everybody, just as you've come back to us, we greet you with the news that some of those Thompson's gazelles you're looking at have lost a cousin. He jumped into the water prematurely and he was devoured by the character that we first developed here in the Mara Triangle, that of the gormless crocodile, who failed to catch any wildebeest the first time we watched 10 or, well, about 200 of them run over his head. He did, however, have absolutely no trouble whatsoever nailing one of those little fellows. Now, since we last saw you, there's been a very large collection of wildebeest gathering on the northern bank there, as you can see, and they're heading towards that other herd, which is still standing rather, well, indecisively, should I say, on the side of the river. And maybe this lot coming over the hill will exert sufficient pressure, but you know, it's actually completely impossible to predict what these things are going to do and when they're going to do it. So, we're just going to sit here and enjoy the spectacle and the experience of being on the great plains of East Africa, where our human ancestors, of course, first stood on two legs. It really is just too special to be here. And there has been quite a lot of rain, like I said, and you can see quite a lot of sort of greyish cloud above us. Now, Debbie, you're in Vancouver, and it's lovely to talk to you. We've obviously talked to you from the Sabi Sant before, while Jean-Andre pans over the burgeoning clouds of this Mara Serengeti ecosystem. You want to know about the crocodiles. I'm just going to move out the way so that you can see the one that is still eating below us there. There he is. And you still see him, Jean-Andre. And you want to know if they're territorial. They are. Not over food though. Often they will share carcasses. I mean, I've seen pictures, and sometimes even live, of pictures of sort of 3 or 4 or 5 crocodiles, and sometimes up to 10 or 20 on one carcass. So they're not territorial about their food. So they don't have one carcass per crocodile, like you say. I think you'll find that the only reason there's only one crocodile eating this one is that the rest of the crocodiles are so full. This time of year for them is a time of absolute glut. And the same goes, you know, for many of the lions. We've seen a lion killed today, believe it or not, and I know that will make many of you jealous, and you will be turning green with envy where you're sitting now, but don't worry, we'll hopefully get you another one. And the reason I say that, of course, is because at this time of the year, the lions are doing a lot of killing, and then half the time they don't even finish their carcasses. So we watched an orphaned wildebeest be chased down by a lioness today, and it's interesting, we'd been watching this wildebeest. We think it was the same one. He'd been orphaned for 2 days. We'd driven past him a couple of times, and he'd been with a herd of zebra, and somehow he'd separated from them today, and he'd sort of joined with a small herd of elephants, and then he left them too, and he ran sort of within 700 feet of this lioness and lion who we followed last night. And she stood up and she slunk into a gully, and he picked her up on the wind, I think, and he turned on and he started to run, and it was amazing. His little legs were running as fast as they could take him, and the lioness just in those incredibly long, fluid, cat-like strides, caught him, and the little fellow turned round as the last ditch sort of attempt to stop her. And she didn't stop for one breath. She turned around, well, she just carried on going. She pulled him down. So that's what we saw just as we drove out of camp today. And of course there's an enormous amount of luck to this, but the point is that she and the male had eaten last night, and yet they still chose to kill, and they could well do it again tonight and the night after that. And that's just because there's so much food over here at the moment. That's not always the case, and certainly if you talk about the lions down on the southern plains of the Serengeti, apparently just before calving time, just before the wildebeest make their way back there, they're emaciated and starving. So it's not always times of good that they make hay while the sun doth shine, Gendre. Let's find out what's going on the other side there, shall we? Sorry, I gave you a very poor direction there. There we are. Gendre and I are just getting used to each other standing in this Land Rover. We're standing on the seats, moving to and fro across them, daintily like little fairies. Well, Gendre is not a very little fairy at all. She's got enormous calves. It's like moving around in a car with a hippopotamus. Speaking of which, there are many of them over here. There we are. Hello Monique in London. You say, do the crocs and hippos ever interact with each other? They do, not very friendlily though. They don't have each other over for dinner. That's normally because they have a very different taste in cuisine, of course. Crocodiles go for rotting wildebeest, hippo go for grass. But they tolerate each other to a certain extent. A crocodile will be very reticent of going anywhere near a big hippopotamus, and if they've got a very small hippo, then the crocs will sometimes go towards them, but then the mother or one of the big bulls will chase the crocs away. So no, they really don't get a huge amount of tolerance from the hippos. So that's the state of play. If you've just joined us right now, what we're hoping is going to happen, one of the great wildlife spectacles the world has to offer, a Mara crossing of wildebeest. And if we look off to the left-hand side there, you can see that herd, indecisive as it is moving slightly closer down towards the river. And they're hopefully starting to feel the pressure of the rest of this bunch coming up from the other side. And I don't know, I mean, I think they're probably, what would you say, Gendre, about 1,000 wildebeest here? I'm getting head shrugs from everybody in the vehicle. So everyone's hedging their bets. I think about 1,000 of them.
Oh, 927, I'd say.
Graham says 927 of them, so I'm glad we were almost right, everybody. Arcadia, I'm afraid I missed your question. I was listening to Makulu Bas telling us exactly how many wildebeest there are here. Yes, Arcadia, you're absolutely correct. You say, do the crocodiles kill the wildebeest as they cross and then leave them to rot and then eat them as they rot? Yes, they do. If there's a very small animal, they'll be able to kind of snap a bone like that and swallow it, and it'll be very delicious for them, I'm sure. But often what they do is drag them underneath a rock, and they'll leave them to rot there for a while, and that rotting flesh will sometimes attract other crocodiles. But then, you know, eventually, as with any good stew, the meat will just sort of fall off the bone, and that's what the crocodiles want. They don't have the ability to chew. They can snap things. They've got the most powerful bite out here, but it's not sort of chewing motion. They can snap their jaws shut very quickly and snap bones, but it's very difficult for them to actually chew bones. So they've got to wait for the flesh to rot. Thank you, Arcadia, for that. But of course, because they are reptiles and they don't have they're poikilothermic, so they don't have to produce their own heat to live. It means their metabolic rate is that much slower than it would be for a mammal, and because it's that much slower than it is for a mammal, they can afford to wait for their food to rot before they eat it. Fantastic stuff. And I'll just give you a little bit of an idea of the birds as well. I know many of you are keeping a bird list. Let's try and keep a Mara bird list too. And I'll tell you some of the things we might be very lucky to see here. We could see the purple grenadier, a lovely sort of waxbill type bird that's quite common. When I first saw one, I thought I'd hit bird gold, as it were, but they seem to be relatively common. Then the Ruppel's vulture is the one you want to see, the Ruppel's griffin vulture. Looks much like the white-backed ones we see in the Sabi Sand. Lovely red beak though. Not red, it's yellow beak. Beautiful. Okay, we're going to still wait here for a little while longer and see what happens. There's some more zebra coming up over the hill there. While we do that, please give my very best regards to the little Nkahuma cubbies.
I will most definitely be giving James's regards to the little Nkahumalets, as I've decided to affectionately call them. And here it is bath time for one of the middle little lionesses. She went up to say hello to Mom, and Mom is now giving her a thorough chest clean, despite the cub's protestations, as she attempts to nibble on Mom's neck. Every now and again, Mom just lifts her chin out of the way, take a brief break from the scratching claws. Now this is the oldest lioness of the Nkahumas, with her cracked canine tooth, and she is the mother of 2 females, the middle cubs. I wonder if they get middle cub syndrome. Back feet battering her in the face. Bath time on Juma. The cubs seem to love it, and yet at the same time take it as the perfect opportunity to play with Mom as well, giving Mom's chest a thorough clean, and at the same time kicking her in the face. That's beautiful. Ooh, competition. Our lionesses are not fussy. Oh, they don't necessarily show much in the way of favoritism towards their own cubs after a certain age. When they first introduce them to the rest of the pride, yes, certainly they're very protective over them. But now that all is settled and the cousins have all come to know each other, lionesses treat each and every cub as their own, right to the point that they let them suckle. It's known as allosuckling, and it's actually relatively rare out here in the mammal world. Nope, done, Mom. No more bath for me. David in Houston, while we watch them, and I mean, I have to say, I sometimes feel for the poor mothers, because those of you with puppies and kittens, you know exactly how needle-sharp little milk teeth are on little carnivores. David, you wanted to know what age they get their permanent teeth, and it ranges, obviously, just like with human beings and with puppies and kittens, but they start to properly teeth at about 6 or so months old. As far as I know, 6 to 8 months of age, they start to grow their permanent adult teeth. Much like the breed of a large dog. Sorry guys, just got to chat to Aubrey very briefly on the Game Drive channel. Oh, never mind. Somebody answered the question for me. And Les, absolutely. Les says he assumes that they only have one permanent set of teeth in their lifetime. Yes, absolutely that is the case. And then permanent teeth, just like human beings, when they get their adult set of teeth, that will be it for life. So it's not like an elephant that rotates through 6 sets of molars in its life. Lion's teeth are permanent, leopard's teeth are permanent, and if something does happen to them, which does occasionally happen, you encounter lions with missing teeth, that's that. Let's head across to James and have a look all the way a couple of thousand kilometers away from where we are now, and have a look at some zebra.
Right, everybody, it looks like those zebras might think about crossing. Now, that is a very small group of zebras to be crossing, but you can see, well, I don't know if you can or not, but I used to be a horseman. Them horses look pretty suspicious to me, and so they're thinking about whether or not there is a dinosaur of the deep waiting for them. Now, I'm just going to focus this rather vast camera. There is Mr. Gormless Crocodile, Andre. I have spotted him. Now, you obviously are just, you can see the bush here, Andre. Down below that, there's something that looks like a floating log, but is not. No. Tell me when you have it. You've got him. Right, there he is, everybody. I mean, that may well not be the Gormless Crocodile, but it could easily be. He is a monstrous crocodile, probably about 9 feet long. Maybe even more. And he's waiting there. The zebra know he's there, and for some reason, you know, they're drawn towards the water, these animals, and despite the risk, eventually they plunge in and they go for it. Now, what I'm going to ask John to do once he's finished with the Gormless Crocodile is to come over this way and show us these wildebeest now, moving down towards there. And I'm going to keep an eye on the zebra because one of them is coming back towards the water now. Andre, of course, getting used to filming these indecisive animals. There we go, back down at the river. It all does point towards some kind of action happening here at some stage, I must say. So it's definitely going to be worth our while sitting here for the course of this afternoon. We do have 5 afternoons here after all. And once the sun doth set over the edge of the Ulololo escarpment, sorry, that's Olulolo escarpment, then we'll go and find the lions and spend some time with them. Now Kay, you want to know how deep the Mara is. You say you don't know if it's been mentioned. It hasn't been mentioned, Kay, so fear not, you have not missed anything. Jean-Marie, can we go back to the hippopotamus over there? And you'll see, Kay, that they are out of the water and they're standing. They don't swim a great deal. They do quite a lot of standing, and they're most certainly on the ground there. Now, a hippopotamus, adult bull, probably stands about 4.5 feet at the shoulder. They're not covered there, so I suspect that particular area is, well, not nearly as deep. But as you come towards us, Jean-Marie, I think that channel there is probably quite deep. I don't think it gets much deeper than 6 feet, so I would say 6 feet at this stage in the deep channels, and then opening out to a much kind of shallower 3 or 4 feet where there aren't any rapids, and then where the rapids of course are and the river is wider, well then a little bit shallower. Now there the zebra are, they're having a drink. And this is often, you know, they just want to come down and have a drink. They don't necessarily wish to cross the river. It is the most stunning afternoon. There does seem to be a bit of a cloud burgeoning off towards the east there, which is slightly terrifying. We were caught in some rain yesterday, which resulted in quite a lot of bad language from a number of us, as we tried desperately to get the roofs back onto the vehicle. And Jean-Andre then stood with a bright red umbrella over the top of the vehicle for the rest of the day. Now, while we're watching the zebra, just to let you know, this is the Mara Triangle, everybody. A northeastern spit of land, 510 square kilometers in extent. That's 51,000 hectares, about the same size as the Sabi Sand. And we are waiting here to see if this great group of wildebeest don't think about crossing the river. Now, I nearly called Jean-Andre a wildebeest, everybody. Jean-Andre, not wildebeest. Can you kindly go across? And you can see that that herd seems to have made a decision, but not necessarily a positive one for us. There. There's one there. Sorry, I think, was it K? You wanted to know if this river is the boundary between the Serengeti and the Mara. Sorry, I'm missing that, Rebecca. You're going to have to go again. Tuhin, you want to know if this is the boundary between the Serengeti and the Masai Mara. It is not. It is the boundary between what we call the Mara Triangle and the Masai Mara, and they're all part of the same system. But the Mara Triangle is a conservancy, quite a lot like the Sabi Sand, I suppose. It's not private landowners, but it is a board, a private board. And then the Masai Mara is a national park, and that's the other side of the river. There's quite a lot going on there down by the drinking rivers there. There's 2 wildebeest have made the plunge down towards the river. The gormless crocodile is sunk beneath the surface as he waits to see if his dinner is going to climb into the water. Now, as much of a blessing as rain is, everybody, you know it's not very good for safari, so we're going to hope that the sun remains out like it is now. Well, until it goes down, of course. Hello, Debbie. This is a lovely question. You say, what is so attractive on the other side of the river to make the animals want to take the danger and cross? Well, Debbie, we all know that the grass is greener on the other side of the river. And I don't mean that to be a slightly facetious answer. That is exactly what it is. It's a case of there being greener grass on the other side and them hoping to find some kind of better food. And in this case, it's probably a bit irrational because it's rained both sides of the river. But there certainly seems to have been a lot of rain on this eastern side where we are now, sorry, the western side of the river. And that means, of course, that the grass is greener, and so the animals are going to want to eat this grass, and so they think about coming across. And it's got greener, you know. It rained the first night we were here, it rained the second night we were here, it rained the third night that we were here, and this is the fourth night, and it looks like it's building now, but we'll see. But it definitely has put a green sheen over the top of the vegetation here, and in much the same way as many of you would have seen how quarantine turns quickly to a beautiful green sheen after a little bit of rain has formed. Well, so it is here in the Mara Triangle. Now, from all these astounding animals to one that I have not seen here in the Mara Triangle, let's go and find out what it is with Taylor.
I'm not going to talk too loudly, everybody. You can see why. We have got a steinbuck, a male steinbuck, walking through all this monkey orange. Now I'm whispering because I don't know when I last saw a steinbuck for more than about 10 seconds. They are quite shy creatures, and this is actually the smallest antelope species we find in this area. So just to be sitting and watching this little steinbuck is quite amazing, and that's why I'm reluctant to raise my voice. I don't want to scare it away, and it's quite close as well. It's only about 20 meters away from us. I actually drove past it first thinking that it was going to run away, and then it didn't, so we reversed and it stayed quite close by. Look at that there. That is incredible. Now, there's not too many antelope that are related to steinbuck. Some of you may have heard of the grijsbok, and that's their closest relative, which are also just as shy and quite hard to see. Now, I used to see quite a few grijsbok, but also just a glimpse of them down in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. They used to be around over there. Now, just to give you an idea of how small this antelope is, if you take your ruler, which is about 30 centimeters, and you stand that vertically, and now you take 2 more thirds of your ruler, so another 20 centimeters on top of your original ruler's length. That is how tall a little steinbuck is. So it's tiny, and they don't weigh very much. They only weigh, this male probably weighs about 11 kilograms, which is not too much either. And at this time of the year, everybody, the steinbuck, unfortunately, are being preyed on by things like leopards. taking a moment just to appreciate this amazing sighting. Now, a lot of you are probably wondering what the difference between a deer and antelope are. Now, I know Jocelyn, who is a new viewer, so thank you for watching the show, is wondering if we have just been looking at a deer. Now, Jocelyn, no, it's not a deer. It's actually an antelope. So in Africa, we don't have any antelope, any deer at all. We've just got the antelope here. And now, one of the main differences is that antelope have horns, as you just saw on that steinbuck, and deer have got antlers. Let's go back to have a look at the steinbuck though, because it is quite special to see it. And there we go, it is moving further and further away from us, everybody. But I don't know when last you all got a good look of a little steinbuck. Remember, we are live, everybody. So if you'd like to interact with myself, Jamie, or James, you're welcome to either hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, or you can send us questions, and you can email us those questions to questions@wildearth.tv. Did you see there how it just stopped and poked its ears up and looked in the distance? Now, this is a very basic technique that antelope will sort of use, an anti-predatory defense, I suppose you could call it. They will freeze. It's the first thing they do, is they stand very still, and then they obviously point both ears in that direction so they can try and hear if it possibly was a threat. But it didn't look like anything too serious because he's carried on munching away. Isn't this spectacular? Now, these little creatures are also solitary, so it's very unusual, and I don't think it's ever been recorded where they've seen a herd of steinbuck. And I always think, imagine if they were living in herds, what easy pickings they would be, even for the big eagles, like something like a martial eagle would be able to catch a steinbuck. And then, of course, like I said, especially in the winter months, the leopards like to eat the steinbuck, and that's just because there's not a lot of greenery on the trees, so it's making it quite open and less dense. So unfortunately, these steinbuck haven't got lots of places to hide. What they will do is, when they run, when they say they have seen something, they'll try and make a quick escape. They'll dash off into the distance, and then they'll sit down. And they'll normally sit down either behind some long grass or find a shrub that's got low branches that will help hide it. Now, they cannot do that at the moment. They sort of stand out quite easily, as you can see, through all these various little shrubs that we're looking at the moment. And look how delicately the steinbuck is picking off those nice new green leaves. Steinbuck are also able to dig. I've seen steinbuck digging for little bulbs and things as well, which is quite nice. Not many of the antelope species will dig. I've seen common duiker, which is the second smallest antelope in this area, as well as the steinbuck digging for bulbs and things. You normally see sharp scratches in the ground. Right, everybody, I think we're going to lose visual of the steinbuck now, but I hope you enjoyed that. And let's see how the lions are behaving for Jamie.
That was an impressively lengthy steinbuck sighting you were enjoying with Taylor. In the meantime, our numbers have been supplemented by the presence of, well, we've still got our cubs all stretched out. The lioness is flicking the flies away. And then one Birmingham boy has come through to join the scene. It is the gentleman with the split lip and the slight skin problem. James has called him Skinny Pom Pom before. He's also known, as far as I know, as number 3. So he's just joined the fray. And our poor boy with the injured cheek is here as well. We just check past Andrew, who's joined us at the sighting. He's in just behind the spike thorn thicket, and this poor boy, he can't sit still. He's just frantically sort of swatting at his face and rubbing at his face. And I can't decide if that's going to make things better or worse, presumably worse, for that injury. It's not looking very comfortable, although it might be my imagination, but oh, that hole's got much bigger. I was about to say his face looks less swollen, but that's because there's less of it at this point. Oof. Ouch. Very, very painful. Now, they do have a higher pain tolerance than us, but that doesn't mean, of course, that they don't feel pain, and that must be unbelievably irritating and painful. and it's weeping badly. You can see it trailing down his face. Oh, shame, boy. Okay, it's no less swollen either, and it looks as though that split is new. He's either been in a scrap or the swelling has actually caused the skin to split around his nose. He's not having a very good time right now. And I think it's going to take him a little while for that face to heal up. Shame, poor boy. They are incredibly resilient creatures, lions, but that's going to take some serious resilience. Amber Eyes and her accompaniment of 2 cubs, she's now spread out and cuddling one completely, resting against her stomach. And then her little shadow at the back, this little cub at the back has been imitating her position the entire time. If she's lying with one paw over her face, this little cub lies with one paw over its face, and if she rolls over, then it rolls over with her. It's quite adorable. Oh, little raw patch under the neck there. That's just from scratching something. Might be a tick bite or something similar. That's nothing too serious. Utterly adorable. So we've accounted, which is a bit confusing to me, we've now accounted for the males that were there yesterday at the sighting, but not the missing female. And I wonder, that is the gentleman that is in front of Andrew's vehicle, that's the gentleman that was with her yesterday, and he was being exceptionally protective over her. There was much in the way of growling and posturing, basically letting the other males know that he had claimed her for this particular estrus cycle and that he wasn't brokering any negotiations on that particular aspect. And yet here we see him without her. Just an assortment of very sleepy, very flat cubs. And the question is, where is she? There's generally a male that is with a female that's coming into estrus, doesn't leave her alone for 1 second. And speaking of our lionesses and their estrus cycle, Nisa, you wanted to know when the cubs are weaned, will the female come into estrus again? Well, let's just have a look at the mother of the oldest cubs, the oldest set of cubs who's lying on the far right of us. Now, the answer is no, they won't come into estrus straight away after they've finished suckling their cubs. Because if we have a look at the mother of the oldest cubs there, she looks like she's slowly actually stopping lactating. So the cubs will be fully weaned by about 6 months old, at which point they will be on a purely meat-based diet. And the mothers might be seen mating with males, but it's a false estrus, and they will only be ready to breed again after about 1.5 years after the cub's birth. So about 1 year or so after the cubs are weaned, and they generally only bear cubs about 2 years. There's about a 2-year interval between the birth of one set of cubs and the birth of the next. That, of course, is the average time that a male coalition spends in charge of an area, or dominant over an area. And by that time, the lionesses may find themselves having to face the same level of chaos that they did when the Birmingham boys came into power. Yeah. Now, I think if we look at those suckle marks, it very much looks, you can still see where the cubs have been suckling, but they've dried out. Yeah, I don't think she's lactating as much, at least, as the other lionesses. I think she's slowing down a bit. Monique, our oldest lioness, who is the mother of the middle set of cubs, you wanted to know whether or not she is the mother of the youngest lioness or the sub-adult lioness. We think so. I think that is the case. If the blog that was put out is to be believed, she's actually the mother of most of these lionesses. But she definitely, when the Birmingham boys took over and the Nkuhumas were split up, and there was much in the way of chaos, she definitely spent more time separate from the rest of the pride with the sub-adult lioness, and of course with her sister as well. And they tell me that when the sub-adults, okay, we can't keep calling her the sub-adult because she's not really a sub-adult, when the younger lioness's sister was killed by the Birmingham boys. Apparently, we call her the grey-faced lioness or broken tooth. She called and called and called and called and called and called around Simbambili and marched around the area that she was killed in looking for her, which does suggest that she's the mother, but not necessarily 100% confirms it. If I'm not mistaken, that's her there, lying with her head on her paws. Yeah, I think that's her. So I think she's definitely the oldest of the Nkuhumas. I don't know whether or not Junior was whose son Junior was. I have absolutely no idea. It might even have been a lioness that was killed by one of the Birmingham boys. I never got to know them as well as I've started to get to know these lionesses. I wouldn't even be able to tell you which one was killed because I'd only spent a few weeks here when that happened. I love the little black tips on their tails. Not very impressive just yet. Still growing. At the moment, just a darkening. One day they'll be fluffy and properly black tipped, but for now they just look like paintbrushes that have been dipped in black paint. No,
not the best view of it.
No. We need an adult's tail, don't we? We need one of them to flick it out a bit. They're all lying on top of them. I'm very curious to know where that lioness has gone and which Birmingham boy got her, because I've now got 3 of them. Could the 4th have arrived? Could Blondie have returned? It's been a long time since we've seen all 4 Birmingham boys together. We've seen 3 a few times, but not all 4. At some point it might be worth going and doing a bit of an investigation. Well, I know Taylor spoke this afternoon about her plans before we went on drive, and she said she was very keen to find us an elephant, and I believe that she has been successful.
I have finally found some elephants, everybody. They are moving on either side of the road, though. We're just trying to get a few of them now. Unfortunately, they've gone behind some trees, but they are coming towards us. So it's only a matter of time before we see them. Again, look at that. You can actually see it. I know it's not the clearest view, everybody, but you can see that elephant flapping its ears. And it looks like a very small breeding herd of elephants. I only counted about 8 or 9 of them, but possibly there are some more coming from the distance. And you can see that one swinging its trunk looking for something to munch on the ground, and it was looking over its shoulder. I don't know if you picked that up. It was actually looking back towards some other elephants. This looks like a bull that we can see here, and hopefully the little one is going to, or maybe it's mom. I can't see very well. We're looking straight into the sun, but you can hear them communicating with each other through rumblings. Okay, no, I think this is mom that we have here. And then here comes a little calf, about to pop out now on the left hand side of your screen. There we go. There we go. There's the little one. Not a teeny tiny tot. Looks to be about maybe 8 months old. Right. We're just gonna, I think we're gonna have to try and reposition again, everybody. Right. Sorry, everybody, just bear with me for 2 seconds. We're on a big road at the moment, and unfortunately there's lots of vehicles trying to come around us. So I'm also just trying to find a nice gap where we are going to be able to see these elephants. It'll be just a few moments. Can we see through here? Let's try this little gap over here. There we go. There's a nice little gap. There we go. So a few of you at home are asking if we're having an issue with elephants and knocking the trees down. Now, we do indeed have an issue with the elephants, but I suppose I wouldn't say it's too big of an issue. So in the winter months, the only food source that's really available, because the grass tends to disappear, is the trees. Now, elephants are big and strong enough that they are able to push the trees down to either feed on the tops of the trees that maybe still have some leaves, and then also to get the roots. Now, the roots are filled with lots of nutrients in them, so lots of water as well. So it's a really good source of food for them, and not too many animals can actually dig up the roots. So I suppose I wouldn't say that they're too destructive. Occasionally you'll see the odd bull taking his frustrations out on a few trees, but most of the time the females are pushing them over to actually utilize them for food. Another thing that they do is they actually also strip the bark. Now, Eggsy, I don't know if you can see this big marula right next to us. Can you see it quite low down to the trunk of the tree? I need to just go forward one little bit. Oops. So I want to show you something about this tree very quickly. There we go. Can you see there's a bit of a scar in that tree? Now that is from the elephants, everybody. The elephants have obviously got those big tusks, and they are able to score the tree with those tusks, and that's one of the other things that they're eating on the trees is the bark. Now, it's quite hard to loosen the bark on the tree unless you're an elephant and you have got some tusks, so they make those scoring, and then they will strip them as well. And another thing I want to tell you about the scoring on the trees is it's quite amazing how the indigenous people used to sort of hunt elephants, and especially when the settlers came through to South Africa and the rest of the parts of Africa, and unfortunately they were hunting elephants, and they did speak to the native people, and they're wondering obviously how on earth did they find these elephants. And what I found quite interesting is they'd actually look at the scoring on the tree to determine how big an elephant bull was. Now, a really big elephant bull has got long tusks, and he will score the tree quite low down on the trunk. Now, an older bull or a female has much shorter tusks and will tend to score the tree quite higher up. So that was a technique that they used when they were trying to track elephants. Now you can see they're slowly actually moving towards us, so I'm hoping that they're going to pop their that little one's little trunk out onto the road so we can get a better view. They've picked up the pace, and they sort of seem quite determined now that they are going to walk and not really feed. I'm going to again just reposition so we can get them coming out onto the road. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my bum, and I'm going to just move off the road a little bit. Like I said, we are on a road that is used by many vehicles. Actually, let's go a little bit closer to them. They're now going a little bit further east of us, and we'll also see how relaxed they are. So depending on how they react to us approaching them, we'll change our minds if we're going to keep our distance or if we can just sit over here. I think we're going to be able to just sit quite nicely just off the road so the other vehicles can pass us. Now we wait, everybody, and they're coming out. Look at them, they're coming out. Definitely worth the obscured visual that we had a few moments ago. Here comes Mom and the little one. It's okay, big girl. You see how she turned her head to us and her ears are slightly raised. She's a little bit nervous. Her tail's also pointed out. It's okay, big girl. Relax, relax, relax. We're just watching you and admiring how beautiful you are. She's a little bit upset. I'm not sure if it's because of us or maybe she's just had a bad day. The animals get bad days too, I'm afraid. She's ushering her little one on quickly. She seems to have settled down now. She's not too bothered by us. So we'll just make sure that we keep our distance with them. We won't go too close to these elephants. And that's very important when you're on safari, is to respect these animals. Remember, we are in their environment. They were here first. So it's always good to try and leave on a happy note. I'm going to take a moment just to sit very quietly, and I'm hoping you can hear what I can hear. There's a female that's pulling away on a tree, and you can hear the leaves quite rustling quite nicely. So let's just take a moment to enjoy this. Can you all hear that? All the rustling through the leaves. Now they're pulling at trees, and that one over there that we're looking at is, what are you trying to pick up? Maybe it's finding some new shoots of grass. Maybe it's looking for some roots. There we go. What have you got? You got a piece of grass. That wasn't a new piece of grass though. That looks like old brown yellow grass, which can't have too much nutrients to it. So just sort of some roughage for the elephants. And they too are going to be very excited. Now, elephants during the summer months actually eat more grass than they do leaves. So lovely to see them moving into this thicket. Now with these elephants feeding on this harder vegetation, all the dry grass, the leaves, the bark, the roots, their teeth are going to wear down a lot quicker than it normally would. So elephants have got 6 sets of teeth, 6 sets of molars that come through, and they reckon they come through every 10 years they get a new set. Now I know Len at home, welcome. Len is also a new viewer. Len wants to know how long elephants live for. Now Len, I've just mentioned to you now how they've only got 6 sets of molars that come through every 10 years or so, and they reckon, so I've got the sun in my eyes now, they sort of guess that elephants can live anywhere between 60 and 70 years. And that just depends on what type of vegetation they're actually feeding on. So in the winter months, their teeth take quite a bit of strain, unfortunately. And just watching the vehicles go by, everybody, they take quite a bit of strain and they wear down a lot quicker, like I said, from the very hard vegetation. We'll have a look at the ellies again to see if they're going to pop out. And in the summer months, as I was saying, with all the new green grass that comes through, they tend to feed on that more than anything. And it gives their teeth a little bit of a break, because all the new leaves that come onto the tree, as well as all that lovely soft grass, isn't too harsh. And it's quite exciting that we did have some rain, because we know that we're going to be able to look forward to all the lovely lush vegetation that's going to come through. Right, everybody, these elephants are disappearing, but I don't think we're going to leave them just yet. There's another road just to the north of them, so I'm probably going to try and go around and wait for them to pop out again. But I think Jamie has got a lovely male lion for you.
He's come wandering right up to us and right up to the front of the vehicle. You can see that he is in considerable pain. I'm kind of going to keep half an eye on him most of the time, so I'm going to be talking to the camera, but I'm going to keep looking back at him, just because he's an injured animal, he's sore, and he's unpredictable. I don't think he's a threat to us at all. He came up to us, he's not bothered by us in the slightest, but you can see he's on edge, he's very, very uncomfortable. And just the flies buzzing around his face is making him irritated and snappy. And what's interesting about this as well is that he's been in a fresh fight. At first I thought that perhaps that split lip underneath his wound was from, and by the way, if you're squeamish, please look away now. I'll tell you when you can look again. I thought that split lip came from just the swelling actually splitting the skin itself. But I don't think that is the case, because he's got a fresh injury on his leg as well. The good news is I don't see any maggots there. Did you, Dave?
No.
Okay, sorry, one more look. I'll tell you when you... Oh, that's better.
Much better.
That's so much better. That is incredible. It's sore, and he's keeping the flies out of it, but the swelling has gone down and the maggots are gone, and there's fresh, healthy pink tissue underneath there. That is phenomenal. These animals are just incredible. Stop rubbing it, boy. That's not going to help you at all. Shame. But that's incredible. So there you go. Alright, everybody, you can look again. Even if you are squeamish, we're not going to zoom right in on that wound again. It is healthy, pink and clean looking. It's sore and it's swollen, but it's going to get better. Unbelievable. Gail, you wanted to know, is it more dangerous with the injured lion around or with cubs? An injured animal should always be treated as something unpredictable. Just because their adrenaline is sky high, they're not feeling well, it's painful, and you just should treat them with an extra degree of respect. But of course, it's impossible to know all the time when an animal is injured. And in terms of cubs, look, I mean, I said I'm keeping a close eye on him, but that's not because I feel any major threat, it's just good practice. And the cubs, the lionesses, have proved to be unpredictable with the male lions, but that being said, they haven't even given us a second glance. That's how comfortable they are with us, and that's how unthreatened they feel. And I have good news in that the cubs are starting to be heads up and looking like they might be wandering about and playing relatively soon. It's the nice thing about lion cubs. They don't necessarily sleep for these massively extended periods of time. There's a couple of big yawns. It's getting nice and cool here this afternoon, and perhaps it's time to, wrestle a buddy. Got him by the ear. I'm so amazed. Remember when we saw that cub with that horrible limp? That leg that looked so incredibly painful, and they were tiny then when they were around that buffalo carcass. And there were a couple of days where that little lion cub was walking like it would never walk properly again, and the foot was off the ground, and big limps. And a couple of days later, it was all in one piece. And that's going to be the same with our Birmingham boy. It's taken a little while, but he's going to heal up absolutely perfectly. Alrighty, let's jump all the way a couple of 1,000 kilometers to the north and find out what James is seeing.
Now we've left the crossing, everybody. The wildebeest seemed to decide that they had no desire to any longer cross the river and risk the dinosaurs of the deep. And here we are on this sort of marsh that comes away from the Mara River. The Mara River is going to turn eventually into lots and lots of little oxbow lakes, and this is one of them forming. And in the background you can see a little elephant. Looks like a young bull just recently separated from his herd, making his way on his own in this vast wilderness. And then we've got a whole lot of different things here, and one of which I don't think any of you have seen. This might be a safari live first. We've got something called a Defasser waterbuck. And instead of just having the ring around the bottom, they have got a great splodge of white fur. And that is how you distinguish the Defasser waterbuck from the standard issue waterbuck that you've got down there in South Africa. There is another elephant, I've just seen it. Chandra, can you see it? There's between the two waterbuck over there, and he's just flapping the ears there. So maybe this young bull's not completely on his own. Then there are a couple of birds, some standard issue grey herons. Saw a black-headed heron here the other day. Oh, there they are. That little pair of birds standing next to each other, Andre, are black-headed herons. That you don't see in the Sabi sand. It's quite nice. And then we have a hammerkop off to the left-hand side. And the hammerkops, one of its closest relatives, is a bird that we don't find, or is potentially found here, and one of the top birds I want to see, and that's a shoebill, which is an enormous thing with a bill that looks like a shoe. A pointed shoe. A bit like the shoe of, I don't know, one of those winkle pickers. Hello, Jeffrey in Texas. You said you thought you saw a Cory bustard across the way there from the zebra. I don't know if you get them here, Jeffrey. Let me check for you quickly. I have an East African bird application. Jean, will you show us these things while I embarrassedly find out whether you find a... Oh, come on, here we are. Cory bustard here. will come shortly, everyone. Bustard. Corey Bustard. Map, yes. Jeffrey, they are found here. I don't think there was one next to the zebra that we were looking at, but it's possible that I missed it. We are doing some amazing dancing around in this vehicle trying to avoid each other, Gendre and I. I will let you know that Gendre has taken his very large boots off. They take up most of the back of this car. Well, he has not small feet. Then, over there, we've got a very gorgeous, actually, sitting in this wonderful light, herd of buffalo. And look, just beyond them, the unbelievable view. There goes the Defasser waterbuck. Mrs. Defasser, good evening to you. And beyond her, look at the plains of the most quintessential African scene you'll ever see. Now, many of you will have watched Out of Africa, that fantastic film with Meryl Streep and Robert Redford. My mother, by the way, is convinced my father looks like Robert Redford. He doesn't. Anyway, that's nothing to do with the Defasser waterbuck, but this is actually largely where they filmed the wildlife scenes in that show. And Dennis Fitch-Hatton was apparently buried not too far from here. Or there's a plaque in his honor. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, you're looking at the waterbuck, but just beyond it is just the most astounding view. You're looking sort of southwest now, and that's the Olololo escarpment on which we are staying. That's where we sleep, and so we look down into here every morning when we wake up, which is a great privilege, and one has to pinch oneself every time. And it's about 1,900 meters above sea level. That is almost, it's just over 6,000 feet above sea level, so it's very high. There's a little calf. And down where we are now is about 1,500 meters above sea level, so it's almost a mile high, everybody. And that makes the climate very delicious indeed. Coldest it gets is about 9 centigrade, which I think sits at about 50 degrees Fahrenheit. And the hottest is probably about 95 or so. And compared with the Sabi Sant, which regularly goes over 100, it's just a little bit more pleasant climate-wise in the summer. Now, what we're going to do is something, it's another Safari Live first, is we're going to drive live towards those buffalo. I'm just going to quickly get myself into a position to make that possible. You know, I never thought the day would come where I longed for Wendy and Rusty, but that day has arrived. Gendre, I think you feel the same. Oh, just quickly before we leave though, Gendre, the two elephants have come out and the light is just so unspeakably magnificent there. Isn't that gorgeous? That little woodland forest is in what will become an oxbow lake. An island in between this great winding river. That's just so beautiful. Sorry, I've missed that, Jessie. There's a nasty echo in my ear. Can we have it again, Becca? Oh, I see. You say that you've heard that elephants can seek out water using their feet over a vast distance. They can, what they can do is feel flowing water under the ground. So, well, I mean, as you know, on Cheetah Plains, they regularly dig up the pipes there. There's no artificial water in this area, though, and I'm not sure how much of it flows under the ground. So I think they probably find water here by remembering where it is. But absolutely, you know, those dry riverbeds of the Sabi sand, they can absolutely feel with their feet where the water is flowing under the water. So yes, it is possible, Debbie. Isn't that just the most gorgeous sight you've ever seen? I'm going to have to take a picture. Hello, Helene. You say this is so cool. I think this is beyond cool, isn't it? It's astounding that we're sitting here broadcasting from this particular area. I've wanted to come here for so very long, and to be able to share it all with you, who've experienced so many of my great wildlife highlights. Well, that's just a great honour, and I hope you're enjoying it. We're shortly going to head off to where we last saw the lions, and we'll see if we can't get a nice sighting of them as they get active, and just before they will hopefully do something useful tonight. Like I say, there's so much for them to eat here that I'm not sure how much they're going to try and feed on today. Now, what I would like you to all do, everybody, is take a very deep breath in, close your eyes, and I'll tell you a little bit about what you should be smelling. There's a tremendously fresh smell because of the rain we've had here. There's not very much in the way of dust. And if you listen, very subtle sounds. Oh, Gendre. Sorry, I'm going to just see what I've spotted here. Very subtle sounds of water birds calling waterfowl. Now, for those of you who like to keep bird lists, Gendre, that is absolutely brilliant. How did you see what I was looking at? There. I saw it before you, James. A grey-headed kingfisher. I'll sort him out later, everybody, don't worry. Isn't that lovely? That is beautiful in this light. I'm not going to try and get up again, Gendre. I'm going to stay right where I am. Hello, James Richard. You were doing as I suggested, probably before I even suggested it. You're keeping a list of birds for the morrow, and you're excited to see how big it will be when we leave. Yes, me too. That one, of course, we do see, and we had a nest. Scott, the ultimate nest finder, found a nest of the grey-headed kingfisher on Arathusa. And it's nice to see them this side of the world as well. There's now this whole herd of elephant coming out into this glorious little seep of water. Let's see if we can find some other birds for you. We will go to those buffalo as well. Oh, this is just wonderful. Gendre, is the reason you've got such big muscles because you've carried such big lenses like I'm carrying now? Exactly, he says, everybody, in case you missed that. He's taking this job very seriously, everybody. Every time anyone breathes in the back of the car here, he shouts at us. Alright, we're going to head towards our lions, hopefully get to them around about sunset. While we do that, let's head across to Taylor, who apparently has found some water.
And Bethany the bug is practicing her backstroke for the next Olympics, everybody. Now you can see, I don't know if it is a she or what it is, but I'm going to just call it a bug and we'll call her Bethany. Now she gets very close every now and then, and the wind comes through and blows her back to the middle of this puddle, but this is a very persistent insect or bug that we have here. Now the reason why I cannot rescue Bethany is because if you look in the next wallow of water, we have a hippopotamus, and unfortunately that is just too close for comfort to rescue Bethany, but I have no doubt she seems to be a great backstroke swimmer, that she will be able to make it out safely. And here is a big male hippo, and he's wallowing away, and I think this is the hippo that we normally see at Red Dam in Arathusa, because he wasn't there this afternoon, And I was telling you all over the last few days that we're going to start seeing a lot of animals in these wallows that have now filled up with water. And you can see it makes the perfect jacuzzi. He hasn't done much. I was surprised that he stayed here when we came around the corner. Remember, we're trying to reposition and get a better view of those elephants. And the good news is as well that the elephants are in the area. We can hear them. So hopefully they'll show themselves soon. But luckily, we found this hippopotamus. And this is something that we'll also try and follow up a little bit later this evening, is to see what this male does as the sun goes down. Now, we often see them, but not for long. They tend to be quite shy when they're out of the water. Hopefully, he's going to go on a little adventure and look for something to eat. Now, hippos are almost afraid of their shadows at night when you use a spotlight, so it'll be quite interesting to see how he reacts to us with the infrared light. Hopefully he will be a little bit more relaxed, and we can maybe see where he goes. So later this evening I'm going to be popping back past here. But it is a nice cool day. Well, it's cool now. The temperature has dropped quite a bit, and there is a bit of a breeze picking up, so he might get out of this little wallow a little bit earlier than I think he may. Hippopotamus. He hasn't even moved once. Or I lie, he has. He rolled slightly over to his side, and now he's not doing very much at all. He must have had quite a nice afternoon, because he's got quite a few shrubs around him, small trees that I think would have been sheltering him from some of the sun's rays. But now they are creeping through as the sun heads beyond the horizon. You just see a glimmer in his eye, which is actually quite pretty. Some of you are probably thinking it must be quite strange to just see this hippo all by himself. I know that you've just managed to see a pod of hippos earlier in the show with James. Now, hippos are made up of not just males, but females too, and that's what makes up a pod. So I know Nat.Geo was wondering about why they saw a pod versus why we're just seeing one hippo over here. Now, you'll only have one bull, though, in a pod of hippos. They're quite territorial, not only in the water, but also out on land. They will mark and defend territories. And the ladies, well, they sort of come and go as they please. I've seen it before in Zambia, where males can be quite aggressive. And I've watched a whole lot of hippos actually move along down the river away from him. He wasn't too chuffed about it, but that showed him for acting so aggressively towards them. But he's not aggressive today. I thought he was actually going to get up and run away from us. I really cannot believe, I was saying to Eggsy, how he just sat in this water, because every other time I've seen a hippo in a wallow of water, whether you're 50 meters away or 10 meters away, they feel quite uncomfortable and they get out and head to denser vegetation. Now, I'm not sure why he is so relaxed. Possibly he doesn't want to waste unnecessary energy, because there isn't a lot of grass around yet, and so there's not much for him to eat. So maybe he's trying to reserve all the excess fat that he has got instead of running away from us. And he's very relaxed with us. He's got his eyes closed now. If he was unhappy, he would have moved away, or at least he'd be watching us. There we go. Now he can understand me. He's just peeping. I'm just making sure we're not doing anything silly. Look at the little hairy ears that they've got, and very small ears. And you see, now he's listening to us. I think he's also listening to the elephants in the distance. Good afternoon, Sean. Sean, the reason that I know that this hippo is a male is purely the fact that he is on his own, and also by his size. He is quite big. Now, to the untrained eye, a hippo would just look like this size, but look how bulky he is. And if he does a big roll, then you may be able to also see how he's a male. Just clearly by his size, the size of his head is huge, and the fact that he is on his own and not in a dam where possibly the females would all be. He's just covering the other side of his body in water now. But it is very difficult to tell the difference between males and females. But once you do this sort of thing every single day for a few years, it becomes quite easy. So the more and more you actually watch the show, the easier it's going to get to be able to tell whether certain animals are males and females. Also, if he were to open his mouth quite nicely for us, which unfortunately it doesn't look like he's going to do that because he doesn't feel threatened by us, you'd also see his canines and his incisors, and they can get to great lengths. Males' incisors and canines, well, the incisors can get a little bit longer. They can get to about 50 centimeters in length, maybe average size anywhere between 30 and 40 centimeters, so about almost double the length of your ruler. I think he's going to wallow around here. Oh no, are you going to get up? I was going to say let's go find those elephants, but let's see what his next move is going to be. No, nothing. I think he's pondering if he should get out and go for something to eat, or if he's going to enjoy this wonderful mud jacuzzi that he has at the moment. Perfect spot. Got a nice little mud bank to rest his head on. He looks very comfortable. While I try and figure out where these elephants have gone, I can hear them rumbling in the distance. I think Jamie has got some Nkahuma cubs for you.
And this is the only cub that is awake at this point. They've just played themselves into exhaustion. A little bit of scratching and biting here and there, but otherwise each and every single little cub has settled down once again, looking thoroughly content with life. 2 pairs of suckling cubs. And I think it is safe to say that the other female isn't lactating because none of the cubs have gone towards her. They've actually avoided her completely. And in wonderful news, we can't leave the sighting, even if we wanted to. There are other vehicles coming in and out, but we're trapped. There is nothing we can do. There's no way out behind me, there's no way out in front of me, and there definitely is a way out in front of me. There's a big male lion that's decided to come and sit right in front of us. And there's lion cubs everywhere. And so it is that we find ourselves in this sighting. Luckily, it is such a lovely sighting. We're not going to be rushing off anywhere anytime soon because there's nowhere to go.